Hare Krishna, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. I'm very, very, very happy to be with all of you. It is extremely exciting for me to um discuss this chapter of Ambarish Maharaj. It's just a phenomenal chapter, absolutely phenomenal. At least that's what I feel. So um, I thought I'll share that with all of you and also engage myself in the reading of the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. So please pay attention and enjoy the devotional nectar. So before we get started, I will let's recite the Mangalacharan prayers as well as the invocation verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Mangalacharan prayers are the ones at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita introduction, Bhagavad Gita as it is. You, I think, have all of you have that. So we will start with that. Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. All right. So, okay. The invocation verses for Srimad Bhagavatam now. I'll share my screen as usual. These are the slides from a different chapter, by the way, from the last time. But as I said, I was making the slides on a different computer, and then that I turned it off yesterday. So those slides are, not transferred over to this one, and I don't want to spend the time to open it and all that. So, but anyway, the invocation verses are the same. You're hopefully seeing the slide. Anybody can confirm? Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So our regular slides, topics from Srimad Bhagavatam. Always so nice to see the picture of Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj and all the rishis. Another picture, same one. And then the retelling by Srila Suta Goswami to the Shaunakadi Rishi in Naimisharanya. And our invocation verse here. So please try to repeat if possible. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Gurudeva
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, so since these are the last time slides, okay, so we'll stop sharing and we'll close these slides. We don't need that. And now we are at the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Very, very, very beautiful pastime. This is in the 9th canto. So last time we covered first canto. We have been spending a lot of time on canto 1. We spent a couple of weeks on canto 2 and the core message of canto 2, pure devotional service. And then for some reason or the other, I thought, let's talk about Ambarish Maharaj. So we jumped straight into the 9th canto. And this pastime of Ambarish Maharaj is covered in the 4th and 5th chapters of the 9th canto. So 9.4 and 9.5. So we will cover that pastime. This pastime we will cover a little bit differently. So first of all, the 9th canto starts or is a description of the devotees and the Lord himself and his devotees that appeared in the dynasty of Vaivashvata Manu, who is the son of who is he the son of? Any idea? Our Vaivashvata Manu?
Brahmaji?
Son, Lord Son.
Yes, of Vivishwan, who is the sun, the sun god.
Son
We-
God.
Yes, we covered this in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4. So, Vaivashvata Manu had several sons, and one of his sons was named Nabhaga, and his son was Nabhaga, and then his son was Ambarish Maharaj. So Vaivashvata Manu is somebody needs to mute. Okay, please mute yourselves, okay? So,
Excuse me, Prabhuji. So
yes.
can we have that?
Yes. Ananya Mataji, what was your question? We can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I was trying to say like the lineage, like the son, Vaivashvata's Manu's son, and then can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, so this is explained in the 9th canto, first 2 chapters, or rather first 3 chapters. A lot of the details are provided of all the sons and pastimes of some of the sons. So Vaivashvata Manu, then Nabhaga, and then Nabhaga and Ambarish Maharaj. So that is the lineage. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can see we will cover this sometime. There are nice pastimes about those descendants as well. Some very, very beautiful pastimes are there. One of my favorite pastimes is that of King Kukudmi. That is there as well, and it has a lot of I keep telling my sons, a lot of relevance to modern science as well. So very, very wonderful pastime. But some other time we will cover that. Anyway, so this 9th canto is consisting of a lot of the pastimes in the dynasty of Vaivashvata Manu, and then so that is the sun god, and then in the dynasty of the moon god. So anyway, who is the most famous personality in the dynasty of the sun god? Huh?
Rama.
Lord Ram. Yes, very nice. So please mute yourself after speaking, okay? Otherwise some noise will start coming. So yeah, so description of Lord Ram is also present in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto. Anyway, so that's kind of the general sort of the large high level contents of 9th canto, but we are going to go into 4th and 5th chapters. 2 chapters are devoted to the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. And this chapter we will cover a little bit differently. If you remember the previous chapters that we covered, we would go through the chapter one time, and some selected verses we would go into the Sanskrit of the verses, go word by word, understand the meanings, and like that we would go, and then finish the chapter in one run, like, you know, one walkthrough. This pastime of Ambarish Maharaj, we will go in 2 walkthroughs. The reason is that there are just this chapter is packed, is just absolutely packed with numerous learnings. Just so many learnings are packed in this chapter that, you know, it's unimaginable. Just too much nectar is flowing. And then I thought that if we go in our usual format, you might lose track of the story, of the storyline, what is happening, because we'll keep going into depth of each of the verses. I started writing down which are the important verses that we should cover, and it came out to be a huge number. So I thought that if we start going deep, you will forget, like, okay, where were we in the whole story? So first we'll cover the story, the pastime, and then we will come back and go deeper into specific learnings and specific instructions. So I hope that is acceptable to all of you, and you will like that. So going through the pastime and then going through the details slowly, gradually. Okay. So is that okay with all of you?
It's okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Is everybody aware of the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj, or are there anybody who is not aware? Anybody who's not aware, you can raise your hand. So everybody is aware? Nobody's saying anything. Somebody's raising. So you're not aware, Geeta Mataji.
So, Prabhuji, we know only just bits and pieces. If you can repeat it one more time, it will be nice. Like,
okay.
Yeah. It's not
Fine.
fully aware.
Not fully aware. Okay, great. So gives me a chance to talk about it. And yeah, very nice. So, okay, great. So this pastime, okay. Yes, Vivek Prabhuji, you have raised your hand. Is that just to say that you are not aware, or?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So we'll describe the pastime. I was thinking if everybody's aware, then we can straight away go into the details. So, Ambarish Maharaj, I'll lower the hands. Okay, great. So Ambarish Maharaj is a great devotee. So at the beginning of 9th canto, so entire Srimad Bhagavatam is basically a conversation between Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, right? So at the beginning of 9th canto, Shukadev Goswami begins to describe the various descendants of Vaivashvata Manu and little bit pastimes of each one. So it seems, at least to me, that he had one verse which described that Shukadev Goswami says that from one of the sons of Nabhaga was Ambarish Maharaj, and he was an exalted, like a really great devotee. And in his life, he was cursed by a very big Brahmana, but the curse could not touch him. Nothing happened to him, even though he was cursed by a great yogi, great Brahmana. And immediately Parikshit Maharaj inquired that, oh, Is that so? I want to hear about him. Not because how to avoid the curse. Acharyas give the commentary that it's not because, oh, because Parikshit Maharaj was also cursed. It's not like to find out how to avoid the curse. That is not the reason why he wanted to know the details of Ambarish Maharaj, but because Parikshit Maharaj or Shukadev Goswami said that he is a very, very great devotee, and such a great devotee that even the curse of a Brahmana could not affect him. So he wanted to know the details. So this is the one of the characteristic of a devotee, is that he wants to hear the pastimes of other devotees and learn from them. And that is the reason why we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam ourselves. We should have that interest. We should generate that interest so that we can understand the life, the devotion of other devotees, and try to follow in their footsteps. So he became very interested and wanted to find out more. So Shukadev Goswami very, nicely started to describe the pastime. So he said that Ambarish Maharaj was a great ruler. He was the king of the entire world. We will read a particular verse in this regard. He was known as the king of the entire earth planet, the Bhumi, consisting of the 7 islands. So, by the way, even at the time of writing, it was known that this earth consists of 7 islands. You will see a specific word there which says Sapta Dvipam. Sapta means 7, Dvipa means islands. And we know that there are 7 large continents in the world. Even though we say that American continent, the Americas was discovered by Columbus in whatever 1500s or something. From the Vedic times, it was very much known. Prior to that, on the world map, America didn't exist. So, but Bhagavatam mentions Saptadvipam, there are 7 islands. So anyway, mapping to the 7 continents. So the point that Parikshit Maharaj mentions is that Maharaj Ambarish, Shukadev Goswami mentions is that Ambarish Maharaj was the ruler of the entire world, but he did not care for all his opulence. That he perfectly knew that the opulence is very, very, very material. It is, this is very nice verse we will go into if we have time today, that he considered the whole world to be like a dream, or the opulence in the world to be like a dream. So in a dream, when you're dreaming, you may think you have become a millionaire or a billionaire, right? And when you wake up, do you feel sad? Are you a millionaire or billionaire after you wake up? No, you are still the same person that went to sleep. But do you feel sad? Oh, I earned $1 billion, and after waking up, I don't have it anymore. You don't feel sad. You just say it was a dream, How does it matter? But that is the spirit in which Ambarish Maharaj took his so-called real opulence, that it is just a dream. He wasn't too excited about it because he knew that it is false, just like a dream is false. Very, very deep instruction is here. And it's like easy come, easy go. $1 billion can come in the dream, $1 billion can go away in the dream. Similarly, in the real world also, opulence can come and opulence can go. One should not be attached to it at all. One should just consider it to be like a very, very fragile dream. Extremely fragile. This whole thing, this whole world is very fragile. Our bodies are fragile. We don't know when we will die. So he considered all his opulence like that. And on the other side, so this is who he was not. Who he was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. And a very striking thing that I saw when I read the Sanskrit verses is that he was a devotee of Vasudeva. It says there, Vasudeve Bhagavati, which means that he was a devotee. Who is Vasudeva? Very, very specific name Vasudeva is given.
Krishna, Lord Krishna.
Krishna, because he is the son of
Vasudeva.
Vasudeva. And later on in the chapter, we will see he goes to Yamuna River. So he is doing his austerities near Yamuna River. So all references to Lord Krishna are there. Now, why am I making a big deal out of this? Why am I mentioning this part? Because Lord Krishna hadn't appeared by the time of Maharaj Ambarish. So a lot of people say, oh, Lord Krishna is just an avatar, is an expansion. And, he is very famous. He spoke Bhagavad Gita and, he did so many wonderful things. But that is not the case. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. He was definitely known even before he appeared in the current day of Brahma. And Ambarish Maharaj's pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam is direct evidence. Ambarish Maharaj appeared even before Lord Ram. So he predates Lord Ram even. And Lord Ram definitely predates Lord Krishna. Even then, the mention directly of Lord Krishna is given in the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. So that was very wonderful and very striking. So he was a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. The Lord named Krishna as well is mentioned at several places in the pastime. So it's not just Vasudeva, but Krishna is also mentioned. Mathura is mentioned. Yamuna is mentioned. What else we need? Kalindi. Yamuna is not mentioned. Kalindi, but we know Kalindi. Kalindi is nothing but the Yamuna river. Kalindi Tata. There are so many songs about Kalindi. All the pastimes of Lord Krishna happened on the Kalindi river, which is Yamuna. Anyway, so not only was he, another very nice thing that is mentioned is not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, he was also a devotee of the devotees of the Lord. So I'm telling you, this chapter is just packed with instructions. Every verse I was reading, I was marking it as important and need to be, rehearsed, or like not rehearsed, but recited and gone over one by one in detail. So this is, just every verse is just so packed. And once again, it is mentioned, he's thought the entire universe, the material opulence, to be no more worthy than a piece of stone. So very, very nicely it is given. Then it is described, these are 3 verses, 18, 19, and 20 of the 4th chapter of 9th canto. Very important verses. Srila Prabhupada has repeated these verses in the Bhagavad Gita as it is purport of chapter 6, 6.18. You can go see it. How Ambarish Maharaj was always engaged in the devotional service. Every part of his body was engaged in devotional service. It is given here in these 3 verses how he engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of the Lord. So we should learn from here how every sense organ of our body should be engaged in devotional service. So his mind was meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord all the time. His words were always glorifying the Lord, describing the glories of the Lord. His hands, number 3. So we talked about mind, words, and then hands. So we always talk about mind, body, and words. So we talked about mind and words. Now we'll break down the body into many parts. His hands were always cleaning the temple of the Lord. His ears were always hearing the words spoken by Lord Krishna. His eyes were always engaged in seeing the deity form of the Lord in his temple. His sense of touch was touching. He was always embracing and hugging the devotees of the Lord. So his whole body, his whole skin, his whole sense of touch was always engaged in embracing the bodies of the devotees of the Lord. His nose or his smelling capacity was always engaged in smelling the tulsi leaves, the fragrance coming from tulsi leaves. His tongue was always engaged in tasting the prasadam of the Lord. And his legs were always engaged in walking to the various places or the various holy places, the various temples, the various places of pastimes of the Lord. And his head was always engaged in bowing down before the Lord and his devotees. And his desire, that's the most important, our desire, his desire was always engaged in how can I serve the Lord. He always wanted to serve the Lord. So that was his desire. So in this way, Ambarish Maharaj was completely engaged in devotional service to the Lord in all respects, and he was completely free from all attachments. So these 3 verses that we just read, 11 categories we discussed. So even if Srila Prabhupada says we can do one of these, not 11, just one, our lives will be completely successful. So in this way, he was completely free from all material desires and fully engaged in devotional service. More things are mentioned. I'll go a little bit more quickly. How he ruled. So all his glories are being described. He always offered the results of his activities to the Lord, who he knew perfectly well to be the enjoyer of all that there is. Yad karoshi yad ashnashi yad juhoshi dadashi yad tapasyasi kaunteya tad kurushva mad arpanam, 9.27 Bhagavad Gita. So everything that he did, he offered to the Lord. And therefore, and he always took advice from dharmic brahmanas. So whenever there was anything that he was not sure about, he took advice from very, very qualified brahmanas. And this we will see plays an important role in the pastime we are going to discuss with Durvasa Muni. And like this, he said he was able to rule without any difficulty. He was able to rule the entire earth. So another learning is how to be an ideal king. Now, this is not a learning for us. Maybe we can pass on this learning to the existing or current rulers. If they are completely devotional and rule under the guidance of qualified dharmic brahmanas, then there will be no difficulty. It is mentioned that even in the desert, there were rivers that would flow, and there was complete prosperity even in the desert. What to speak of areas where there is rain and vegetation. So even the desert areas were completely prosperous. So he was performing all his prescribed duties perfectly. And that is the reason it is mentioned, and under the supervision of very, very qualified brahmanas. And who is the main acharya or brahmana for the dynasty of sun god? Anybody?
Vasishtha.
Vasishtha, that is correct. So under the guidance of the great sages like Vasishtha, Asita, Gautama, headed by Vasishtha, he was ruling the kingdom. And he was performing all his prescribed duties as a king, offering it to Krishna, as well as performing devotional service all the time. So I have a question for you. That was his prescribed duty. What is our prescribed duty? Do we know? You can raise your hand if you know. Specific prescribed duty. Something
Be in
specific.
touch with Lord always.
Okay. How do you be in touch with the Lord always?
Ever remembering him, ever doing his service.
Okay. So I'm
In
asking
the memory
more
of him, we
specific.
do work.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Very good. More specific. More specific.
Chanting and hearing.
By
Chanting
reading,
and hearing. Okay. Very good.
Association of devotees.
Association of devotees. Very nice.
always engaging in reading the scriptures.
Always engaged in reading scriptures. Okay. Very nice. I'll give a hint.
Is
Yes,
it
Ananya Mataji. Or Anita Mataji.
What, yes,
Shravanam Kirtan.
whatever we do, we offer to Krishna. Whatever, all our activities, all our, whatever we do, whatever.
Okay, very nice. Shivani, do you want to say something? You said Shravanam.
I only
Namaskuru.
Man mana bhavan mad bhakto. Okay, very nice.
Madhyaji Mama.
Sadhu Sang.
Something else?
Sadhu Sang.
Sadhu Sangha. So I'll give a hint.
Varnashrama system, Prabhu.
Following Varnashrama system. Okay.
Devotional service.
Love Krishna, love God.
Love Krishna. So I'll give a hint. Okay,
Faith.
it is given by this
Complete surrender. Sorry.
complete surrender. Okay, this prescribed duty is given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Spreading the word of the Lord Krishna.
Sankirtan.
Very nice. Who said that? Sankirtan. Yes.
Sankirtana. Nama Sankirtana.
Nama Sankirtana. Hari Nama Sankirtana. That is the prescribed duty for Kali Yuga, for all devotees, for all human beings, but many don't understand. So at least those who are following the instructions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Yuga Dharma. So here we are talking about prescribed duties, which is known as our dharma, our yagyas. So in the there are various forms of yagya in the various ages. Now, actually, I'm going in a tangent. This is exactly what I did not want to do. I wanted to cover the story, but I somehow went into a tangent. Anyway, we'll cover this tangent and then we'll come back into the story. Okay. So anyway, the prescribed duty of every age is given. Of the Satyuga, it is tapasya. It is performing austerities and deep meditation. Of Treta Yuga, it is performing
Yajna. Yajna.
yagya. Of Dwapar Yuga, it is performing
Sacrifice.
no, that is same as yagya.
Deity worship.
Deity worship.
Deity
Exactly. And of Kali Yuga, it is Harinama Sankirtana. Exactly. So these are the Yuga Dharmas. So the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga is nothing else but Harinama Sankirtana. So I just wanted to, bring that up. And the Acharya, at least for us, under whom, like Vasishtha was the Acharya under whose supervision Ambarish Maharaj was doing all that, our Acharya is none other than Srila Prabhupada. Under his direction and his guidance, we should go and do Harinam Sankirtana as much as possible. Okay, so like that, Ambarish Maharaj was ruling, and again, it is given that Ambarish Maharaj. Yes, Madhav, you had a question. You have your hand raised, or is it from before? You can lower it. Okay. So not only Ambarish Maharaj, even all his citizens were great devotees. They were always engaged in hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord. They were not interested in anything. They were not interested even going to Swarga. They were simply, or to higher planets. They were simply interested in pure devotional service, and they were all pure devotees of the Lord. So, like that, the glories are described of Ambarish Maharaj and his rule, his whole kingdom. So then at one time, Ambarish Maharaj, another point is Ambarish Maharaj used to perform severe austerities as well. It is given there, Tapa Yuktena, he was always engaged in tapa. So even though he was the king of the world, he had all the opulence, he was always engaged in austerity as well. He wasn't somebody who would used to enjoy the opulence. Of course, I mean, this is clear by now. However, in many places, at least a lot of classes I hear and everything, Ambarish Maharaj's example is given as somebody who was a great king with lot of opulence, plus he was a great devotee. I just want to point out, again, a slight tangent, I will go and come back quickly, which is that if one is taking the example that, yes, I can have lot of opulence and enjoy it and not do any austerity and do devotional service at the same time, that is the wrong understanding of the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. The only thing was that he had a certain responsibility to rule the world. So he did not walk away from it. He did not renounce of all of it externally, but internally, he completely renounced it, not only mentally, but even bodily. So he was even bodily not enjoying any of those opulences. He was living a very, very austere life. And this will come up really soon. And that is sort of the main point of the whole pastime as well. So that is the right way. So even if there is a lot of opulence, it does not mean that one should move away from one's Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, which is the prescribed way given by Srila Prabhupada. Regulative devotional service, very, very determined regulative devotional service should be performed. Opulence should not make one do any less Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, regulative devotional service, than somebody who has less opulence. For one's sadhana, opulence is not a criteria at all. Whether a poor man or a rich man, both can perform equal level of their sadhana. So opulence should not come in the way of one's sadhana. Then opulence, if it is there, by the way, as a by the way thing, it is there, it's there. Okay. So it should not be enjoyed by a devotee. It's not meant for enjoyment, personal enjoyment. It should be used in service of the Lord. So like this, he was living his life, considering all the material possessions that he had to be temporary, to be as good as a dream. So now we enter into the specific pastime. So this is the glory of Ambarish Maharaj that Shukadev Goswami describes, of the king, of his kingdom, of the people, and so on. And very important thing that is mentioned, Lord Narayana gave his Sudarshan Chakra to Ambarish Maharaj, so that Ambarish Maharaj always remains protected. So Lord Narayana was so pleased with Ambarish Maharaj that he gave him his Sudarshan Chakra. So now we come to the specific pastime of Durvasa Muni. So one time, and Ambarish Maharaj had a very, very devotional wife. We will talk about this topic also in detail, about whether one should be detached from the family, leave your wife and children or something like that, or be attached, or stay together with your family. So here it's very clear. His wife was very devotional, and together with his wife, both of them, husband and wife, it is written here, who was equally qualified as Ambarish Maharaj. They observed a vow of Ekadashi for 1 year. We do Ekadashi for 1 day at a time. He observed it for 1 year, which means just eating fruits and water, basically. So for his devotional service and for his prescribed duties. So that is what he was doing. And then to break that 1 year fast, you have to conclude it with 3 days of complete fasting. No water, no nothing. So we have Nirjal Ekadashi coming up in a couple of days. And so like that, you have to do 3 days of Nirjal to conclude, or to as a last culmination of the 1 year vrata. So he and his wife both, did that 3 days of vrata. And then you have to break the fast. Once you have done the fasting for such a, with so much determination, you have to break the fast at the right muhurta, at the right time. So he bathed in the Yamuna river. He performed very wonderful abhishek of the deity of Lord Krishna. Now this is where it is mentioned in the verse that he did abhishek or bathing ceremony of Lord Krishna's deity. So if he is bathing Lord Krishna's deity, that's another evidence that he was worshipping directly Lord Krishna. Mukunda, Krishna, these are the words that are used. So all that he was doing. And this fasting he was doing in Mathura, in Madhuvan, which is one of the forest. Van means forest. Madhuvan is one of the forests in Mathura. So that's where he was doing these pastimes, or these, austerities. So at the time of breaking the fast, he did all these things, bathed the deity, called a lot of brahmanas, fed them very nicely. He was going to break his own fast. So just as he was about to break the fast, okay, Durvasa Muni comes. Now, Durvasa Muni, just a quick description or a quick sort of a biography or a his character. He is a yogi. He is not a devotee. He's not a bhakta, but he's a great yogi, and it is also mentioned later in one of the verses that he focused his mind on the impersonal Brahman. So, but he was such a great yogi that he could go all the way to Vaikuntha. He could go wherever he wanted, just like Narad Muni. Narad Muni is a devotee, but Durvasa Muni is not having that sort of mood of a devotee, but he is one of the greatest yogis. So from the standpoint of strength and power, he is up there. Nobody can match him. So he appears on the scene, and he is very, very, sometimes he gets very angry, and pride comes in the way, envy comes in the way. Oh, you must respect me. If you don't respect me, I will give you a piece of my mind. So like that. So he was a very angry yogi in that sense. So if you remember in Lord Krishna's pastime also, Draupadi had finished eating, and Durvasa Muni comes with his thousands of disciples, and Draupadi is in trouble. If Durvasa Muni gets angry, then he can cause serious problems. Then she meditates on Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna comes and eats that one grain from the Akshay Patra. And Duryodhan had sent Durvasa Muni. He knew that I should send after Draupadi has finished eating. So he was trying to get the Pandavas in trouble. So Durvasa Muni is famous for causing trouble to if he is not respected enough. So Durvasa Muni comes. Anyway, Ambarish Maharaj is very much aware of Durvasa Muni, and not just to make him not angry or kind of keep him pacified. That was not his intention. He's a great Brahmana, and he was anyway respecting all the Brahmanas. So he respected Durvasa Muni as well. And he said, please, you offered him food, offered him worship, all those things very respectfully. And Durvasa Muni said, thank you so much. He was very happy with that. And he said, you know what? I have to go to the Yamuna river. I'll take a bath. I will do my Sandhya japa, or the ritual of chanting certain mantras after taking a bath. And then I will come and honor the prasad. So he goes to the Yamuna. This is where it is mentioned. He meditates on the Brahman and completes his evening prayers, and then is going to come back. Now, in all that process, he was taking more time. And in the meantime, the muhurta, the right time of breaking the fast for Ambarish Maharaj, is passing away. And then Ambarish Maharaj is getting anxious. What is taking so much time to Durvasa Muni? And if I don't eat till he comes back, then all this 1 year of fasting that I have done will not produce the devotional result for my kingdom and for all the people that I had desired. And if I eat something, I will be offending Durvasa Muni, because you're not supposed to eat before such a great Brahmana you have offered him food, and he should eat first. So, and plus, he could get angry as well. So he was in this dilemma, what to do. And this is when he consults the Brahmanas. So that is the connection that we said. Whenever he faced a problem, he would always consult learned Brahmanas like Vasishtha Muni. So anyway, so he gets the advice from the Brahmanas that you just take a drop of water. A drop of water is not really considered to be that you have eaten something. So Durvasa Muni you won't be offending him, because you are still going to wait to eat the whole prasadam. Just take a drop of water, and it will be considered your fast has also been broken. You have completed your fast simply by accepting a drop of water. So you kind of get both the results. It's a middle ground. So he said, okay, that sounds good. And he took 1 drop of water. Okay, so he thought he had successfully broken the fast as well as not offended his guest. So after some time, Durvasa Muni comes back. And Durvasa Muni is a great yogi. And he realizes through his power of yoga that, oh, you Ambarish, King Ambarish, you've had water, little bit of water, and you didn't wait for me. And he becomes very angry. It is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. His face was red, it was trembling, just for such a small thing, how angry. So another point to be learned is all this yoga and all this Brahman realization and all this great achievement, it was all there with him, but he could not control a simple thing like anger, and that too on such a small offense. It was not even an offense, but he considered it to be an offense, and that too that he had taken one drop of water before Durvasa Muni had eaten. He became very angry and he started blaspheming. Now this is the offense he committed. He blasphemed. He said very bad things to Ambarish Maharaj, who was such a great devotee of the Lord. He said, you are not a devotee. You claim to be a devotee of Lord Vishnu. You are not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. You are just a normal king who is proud of all your material position. You are proud of all your wealth. And you consider yourself to be God. You don't consider Vishnu to be God. You think you are God. And you think you are above the laws of Dharma. Dharma says you should have waited for me. You didn't wait for me. So you think you are above the law. We see today, kings or rulers consider themselves to be above the law. So he said like that. And then not only he blasphemed Ambarish Maharaj, he even tried to kill him. So what he did, he was such a big yogi, he plucked out a hair from his body and from his head, and he threw it on the ground, and from that hair came a big demon. So let me show you a picture. I have as I said, my PowerPoint for this class is not available, but I still found the pictures quickly. So, and these are all Google pictures, so it's nothing too special. Yeah, let's see which one. So yeah, this one, if you can see, can you, am I sharing the screen?
Yes.
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 So here you see Ambarish Maharaj is standing there, and this is Durvasa Muni, and he throws a hair to the ground, and this big fiery demon, like a fire, in the shape of fire, this demon comes with a trishul. He has a trident or a trishul in his hand, and he is ready to pounce on Ambarish Maharaj. Now, beautiful thing happens. It is described in the Bhagavatam that when Ambarish Maharaj saw this, he did not even show 1 inch of fear or even one iota of fear, or he did not try to run away. He just stayed there and just meditated on the Lord. So this is the quality of a devotee. He was fully ready to accept this punishment as a mercy of the Lord. So it was not because he was confident of the protection of Sudarshan Chakra that was given to him or anything. That is totally not the case. He was simply, he accepted this fate and he surrendered to the Lord, and he just started remembering the Lord. So that's what happened. And then imagine what happened. The Sudarshan Chakra, which was protecting him. Now devotees do not demand, don't even request Lord's protection. But the Lord, out of his own desire, protects the devotees. The devotees they are simply interested in serving the Lord unconditionally or with no reciprocation. They don't expect or demand any reciprocation. When the Lord reciprocates, they take it fully, they enjoy it fully, but they don't demand it. That is called unconditional love. So the Sudarshan Chakra of the Lord immediately burnt the fiery demon itself. The demon was made of fire, but the Sudarshan Chakra's fire was so much that it burnt the demon to ashes. And then so I have, I think, a picture of that as well. Very nice pictures I have. Let's see. Yeah, no. So anyway, so this on the left hand side, you see this Sudarshan Chakra. The right hand side is a picture we'll discuss later when Durvasa Muni is falling at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj. So that is later part. So just see the left side of the picture for right now. I think I have just a picture like that. No. No. So just the left side picture is there where you can see Sudarshan Chakra. Then not only he kills the demon, Sudarshan Chakra is also personified. Sudarshan Chakra is also very angry at Durvasa Muni, that how can he offend such a great devotee of Lord. So he goes after Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni, now here is the opposite reaction. What happened when the demon came in front of Ambarish Maharaj? He surrendered to the Lord. He did not even move. He just accepted the fate. Whereas Durvasa Muni started running. He became frightened and he started running away. So you can see the clear contrast between Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. And he started running and running and running. So you can see here he's running to save his life. His life was so dear to him. And in this picture also you can see, I'll enlarge it. Another picture, Durvasa Muni is trying to run away from the Sudarshan Chakra. And yeah, this is the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Vishnu. Another picture, and Durvasa Muni is running away from it. Yeah. So Durvasa Muni starts running away from the Sudarshan Chakra. And this Sudarshan Chakra is almost, it is written, touching his back. It was running very fast. And Durvasa Muni is a great yogi. He's also running very fast. So he goes, into the sky, into the other planets. First, he goes into the whole earth, hoping that Sudarshan Chakra will forget and will just go away. He goes into the various mountains and caves and to the other planets and all that. And finally, when he realized that the Sudarshan Chakra is not going to give up, finally he goes to the abode of Lord Brahma, to Brahmaloka, and takes shelter of Lord Brahma. He says, Lord Brahma, please protect me from this Sudarshan Chakra. And Lord Brahma, guess what he says? Lord Brahma says, I cannot protect you. This Sudarshan Chakra belongs to Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu, these universes are coming out from his body with every breath of Lord Vishnu. A universe comes out, and another breath, it dissolves, it disappears. And I am just in this universe. So I am completely, my whole existence is dependent on the Lord Vishnu. And this Sudarshan Chakra belongs to Lord Vishnu. I have no power over it. So, you please find some other shelter. I will not be able to help you. So Durvasa Muni is very, very disappointed. Then he says, okay, let me try Lord Shiva. Then he goes and takes the shelter of Lord Shiva. Now, Lord Shiva is in Kailasha, which is in the spiritual side of the world. So he goes to Kailash mountain. And Lord Shiva also says, you know what? I am just a devotee of the Lord. I am a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is so much more powerful than me, and I will not be able to stop the Sudarshan Chakra. So I have no power to stop this. And he says that, even though I know the past, present, future, I know everything. I so many saints, I have blessed, and I have done all those things, but this Sudarshan Chakra, I cannot do anything about it. You should go directly to the owner of Sudarshan Chakra, which is Lord Vishnu himself. So finally, Durvasa Muni goes to Vaikuntha Lok. So he has access to Vaikuntha. So he goes there and he takes shelter of Lord Vishnu, hoping that fine, he is the final personality. He was little ashamed to go to Lord Vishnu. He knew he had offended Ambarish Maharaj. He knows that by now. So he was little embarrassed. When a child does something wrong and he is caught, he doesn't want to come to his father and admit that I have done a mistake. So he goes to the uncle, to the mother, to more lenient personalities, but little bit embarrassed to go to directly to the person whom he is accountable to. So finally he goes to Lord Vishnu and he falls at the feet of Lord Vishnu. And immediately, without even asking, he starts speaking that I have offended your devotee. He knows the philosophy, he just couldn't implement it. He knows about bhakti. He knows that offending a devotee is really, really bad. So he did not know that Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee. That is why it is said we should not offend anyone. Because we don't know who is a devotee and who is not, or maybe he knew it. That is not mentioned, but in his rage, in his anger, in that moment, he got so angry that he committed the offense. But it doesn't mean he did not know the principle. So immediately he falls at the feet of Lord Vishnu and says, please forgive me. I am your offender, and actually I'm not your offender. I am the offender of your devotee. But please somehow save me from this offense. And he starts glorifying the Lord. You can do everything. This is your Sudarshan Chakra. You can deliver anybody. You can award liberation to anybody. Please award me safety from this Sudarshan Chakra. Then we are towards the end of this 4th chapter and verse number 63 onwards. So this chapter has 71 verses. So 63 to 71, how many verses that is? 8, maybe 9, both inclusive. Very beautiful response by Lord Vishnu. So these verses are very, very celebrated. 63 to 71. If you want to read, we will go through it in detail in the subsequent classes. It's already 7 o'clock, so I don't think today we can do that. These are very, very important verses directly being spoken by Lord Vishnu. And these verses show the mentality of the Lord, the relationship of the Lord with his devotees. So the Lord says, I am sorry, I cannot stop the Sudarshan Chakra. So it means the Lord, even though he said, Durvasa Muni, you can do everything. What does Lord Vishnu say? I cannot stop the Sudarshan Chakra. And later on, he will say, only Ambarish Maharaj can stop it. So, who is greater, the Lord or the devotees of the Lord?
Devotees.
Devotees of the Lord.
Lord.
Devotees of the Lord.
Exactly. That's exactly the right answer. Between the Lord and his devotees, the devotees are greater. Why? That's the next question.
He listens to them.
Sorry?
God listens to his devotees.
Lord listens. Okay, but why does that make the devotees greater?
Because of their steadfast devotion, their unconditional surrender to the Lord, and the Lord is controlled by the devotees.
Yes, the last part is the right. Yes, that's what I was looking for. The Lord is in the complete control of his devotees. So there are things that the Lord cannot do. What is it that the Lord cannot do? The Lord cannot go against the wishes of his devotees. If the devotee wants something from the Lord has to agree. So he is completely bound. So the devotee can actually ask anything. So he becomes more powerful than the Lord because he has the complete control of the Lord and he can make the Lord do anything theoretically. But of course, the pure devotee never misuses this aspect. He always serves. That is simply a byproduct that the Lord is in his control, but he never exercises that power ever. Anyway, this is what makes the devotee greater than the Lord. So Lord Vishnu says, I am sorry. I am in complete control of my devotees. I am not independent. You are saying you are independent. You can award liberation to whomever you want without any cause. You are very merciful. All that is fine, but I am not independent. I am bound. I am completely controlled. I am chained. I am in full control of my devotees. And very beautiful thing, he says another thing. He says, not only I am in the control of my devotees, I am in the control of my devotees also. So that mercy, or that whole relationship, is not only extended to his direct devotees, but to the devotees of his devotees. So, that is why, and the devotees are very merciful. So this is why it is said that we should try to become devotees of the devotees. If we try to become devotee of Krishna, it may take very long time, because Lord Krishna will test us. Lord, he will say, okay, you have to still do more devotional service before I can, give myself to you fully. I can come in your full control. But his devotees are very much more merciful. They will tell to the Lord, please come in the control of this person, because I love this person very much. Lord cannot do anything. He might think, oh, what's such a rascal? Why should I come in his control? But now my pure devotee is asking me to come under his control. Fine, I will come under his control. So that is why becoming a devotee of the Lord is so much more easier than to become direct devotee of the Lord. That's why everybody is praying to Srimati Radharani. If you go to Vrindavan, everybody will say Radhe Radhe. Nobody says Krishna Krishna. Everybody says Radhe Radhe, because they know that Radharani will immediately recommend our situation, our case to Krishna. Please accept this person. Then Krishna can never refuse. He can never refuse. So this is the glory of the Lord. So he says that I am in complete control of my devotees. I have no desire to enjoy anything without my devotees. Very beautiful verses are there. He says that my pure devotees give up everything for me. They renounce every single thing they have, their house, their family members, their whole life they have dedicated to me. How can I abandon them? How can I do anything that is not in their favor ever? I am just completely powerless. And he says that they are, my devotees are so devoted directly. This is another evidence directly from Srimad Bhagavatam. Even though Lord Chaitanya has said this several times in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Goswamis have said this, that the devotees of the Lord, the pure devotees, are not interested in liberation. Directly, Lord Vishnu is saying here, directly in Srimad Bhagavatam, that my pure devotees are not interested in the 4 types of liberation. What are those 4 types of liberation? Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Srishti. These are the 4 types of liberation. Salokya means getting the liberation where you are in the same loka of the Lord. Sarupya means you get the same form as the Lord. Samipya means you stay near, Samip, close to the Lord. And Sharishti means you have the same opulence as the Lord. So these are described in the Shastras as the 4 types of opulences or liberation. There is another 5th one, which is called Sayujya Mukti, which is called impersonal liberation, which is below these 4. These 4 are direct type of liberations. So here directly Lord is saying my pure devotees are not interested in these liberation. They are not interested in mukti. They are only interested in bhakti. And he says, though my devotees automatically get it, this is a foregone conclusion that they will get liberation, but they don't want it. That's not why they are performing devotional service. So they are just doing this to have a loving relationship with me. So like this, Lord Vishnu is glorifying the devotees. And he says, my devotees always live in my heart, and I always live in their heart. They know nothing more than me, and I know nothing more than them. So what is always there in the Lord's mind? His devotees. And the same way in the devotee's mind, always the Lord is there. So that is a characteristic, or that is the test of a pure devotee. If you want to know when am I a pure devotee, one thing you can see is, in your mind, is Krishna occupying 100% of your mind all the time, like the gopis, all the time, 100%, or Srila Prabhupada. Every time he was thinking, okay, in this city, how should I build a temple? How can I distribute Bhagavad Gita to some of these people? How can I make these people Krishna conscious? All the time his mind was coming up with various schemes, in a good way, schemes, to spread the message of Krishna. So that is the quality of a pure devotee. So then Lord Vishnu says, he also folds his hands and tells Durvasa Muni, please, I cannot do anything, but I can tell you the way, upaya, he says, I can tell you the upaya, the way out. The only person who can save you is Ambarish Maharaj. Now he tells Durvasa Muni, you acted out of envy. You have committed a Vaishnava aparadh. So therefore, Vaishnava aparadh is the most serious kind of aparadh. We should never, ever, ever offend a devotee of the Lord, because if we offend a devotee of the Lord, even the Lord cannot save us. Even though he may want to, he cannot. He's just helpless. So he says, you have offended. It wasn't because of any dharmic principle, because you were trying to teach a lesson to Ambarish Maharaj, because Ambarish Maharaj had some materialistic propensity or anything like that, that you were trying to do benefit to him. Sometimes devotees of the Lord punish others for their benefit, like Narad Muni punished Nalakuver and Manigriva. That was for their benefit. He said to Durvasa Muni, Lord Vishnu, that you were committing a aparadh to a devotee. It was not because you were trying to do his benefit. And therefore, only he can save you. My hands are tied. And all this scholarship, all this great yoga of yours is of no use if you are not a devotee. If you offend devotees, if you are not gentle and compassionate and kind to devotees, however big yogi you may be, it is of no use. It's very, very dangerous. You have stepped into very dangerous territory. So I wish you good luck. Please go and deal with Ambarish Maharaj. If you can satisfy him, then you can be saved. Otherwise, I cannot do anything. Then Durvasa Muni immediately comes back, and Sudarshan Chakra is still following him. Sudarshan Chakra was waiting because he was having a conversation with the master of Sudarshan Chakra. So Sudarshan Chakra so far was waiting. And as soon as Durvasa Muni left, Sudarshan Chakra again started chasing. And Durvasa Muni directly reached Ambarish Maharaj. And so now that picture becomes relevant. Let me show that picture where he falls at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj. So you can see here in this picture, this is Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni is touching his feet, and Ambarish Maharaj is talking to Sudarshan Chakra, saying, please go away. Please don't hurt this Brahman. So that is the conversation he's having. Another picture I had here. Yes, this one. You can see here. Durvasa Muni is falling down at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj, and Ambarish Maharaj is praying to Sudarshan Chakra. So, and by the way, here is another picture which shows Durvasa Muni is approaching Ambarish Maharaj and Sudarshan Chakra is still chasing. So very, nice pictures found on the internet. So when Durvasa Muni reached Ambarish Maharaj, he fell at his feet and said, I am very ashamed. I am very, very sorry. I have offended you very, very greatly. And he, he didn't actually say that. In the Bhagavatam, it is written, he was feeling that way. But as this is another great quality of the devotee, devotee doesn't wait for an apology or anything. He was so kind that without even Durvasa Muni saying anything, Ambarish Maharaj started praying to Sudarshan Chakra to go away. So we can see that Ambarish Maharaj was so kind and compassionate. They don't want any apology. They don't want any glorification. They are kind and compassionate to all living entities, even those who try to hurt them. Durvasa Muni tried to kill Ambarish Maharaj through that demon. Not just he said bad things to him, he tried to actually kill him. Still, as soon as he saw Durvasa Muni coming with Sudarshan Chakra behind him, he started praying to Sudarshan Chakra to go away. And he offers wonderful prayers to Sudarshan Chakra. This is in the 5th chapter now of 9th canto. The prayers of Ambarish Maharaj to Sudarshan Chakra. And he glorifies Sudarshan Chakra very nicely. He says, you are the divine weapon of Lord Vishnu. You are as good as Lord Vishnu himself. You are the as powerful as the sun, the moon, all these things. And he says that please, go away, or please be peaceful and give relief, give shelter to this Brahman, Durvasa Muni. He says, you are the truth, you are the enjoyer of the sacrifices, just like Lord Vishnu is Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. You are the maintainer of the universe. You are the vision, original vision and the power of the Lord. You are all pervading. You are the auspicious hub of the 1,000 spokes, the 1,000 teeth of the wheel of the chakra. And you maintain the 3 worlds. Like that he was trying to, but Sudarshan Chakra was not stopping. Then Ambarish Maharaj says, oh my God, Sudarshan Chakra is not getting pacified. It's not stopping. So he puts his devotional service on the table. He says, if I have done enough devotional service, all my carried out my occupational duties properly, if I have followed the dharma, if I have done all the sacrifices, yagyas properly, please go away and please give shelter to this Brahmana. So I'm exchanging that. He was willing to give up all his pious credits. He says, you take all my pious credits and you spare this Brahmana. Sudarshan Chakra did not go away still. Then there was Ambarish Maharaj thinks, what else can I say? Then he says that if the Supreme Lord is pleased with us, please, for the sake of the Supreme Lord, please free this Brahman. Then Sudarshan Chakra, when he hears this, that his own Lord, Lord Vishnu's, he's making that argument that if the Lord is pleased with us, then please be peaceful. Then he cannot, counter that. Then Sudarshan Chakra becomes peaceful and Sudarshan Chakra goes away. And Durvasa Muni is very, very happy, very satisfied. And then he begins to praise Ambarish Maharaj. And he then realizes, he says, Ambarish Maharaj, you are the greatest devotee. Today I have met the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu ever in my life. Even though I tried to kill you, you tried to save me. And for devotees like you, nothing is impossible to get, right? Devotees can get anything they want. But here is the important point. He says, nothing is impossible to get. Nothing is impossible to give up. So devotees can give up anything, even their whole devotion, if it is needed. Like here, he says, take away everything I have, all my pious credits, just save this Brahman. So devotees of the Lord are so kind that they can give up anything. Nothing is impossible. I'll stop sharing for a second. Okay. And then from his yogic powers, he realizes that all this time when Durvasa Muni was gone, with the chakra behind him, Ambarish Maharaj was praying for him. He realizes that. It's not like, okay, fine, gone, good riddance, and hope I never see him again. No, that was not the mood of Ambarish Maharaj. He was praying for his welfare and he continued his fast. Even though he took that one drop of water, he afterwards continued the fasting. And because time travels at different rates in planet Earth versus other planets, even though Durvasa Muni was going through all these places one after the other at very high speed, you know, in that time that he was going around this universe and to the Vaikuntha Loka and came back, 1 year had passed on the earth. So Ambarish Maharaj fasted for another year actually. And then Durvasa Muni came back. And he kept fasting till then. He had no understanding whether he will come back or not. But all this time he was praying for the welfare of Durvasa Muni. So you can see the extreme level of devotion, extreme level of kindness. It's not just devotion, it is kindness to all living entities. Samam sarva bhutani mad bhaktim labhate param. That's the second line of 18.54. How it starts 18.54? Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samam sarva bhuteshu. He is equal and kind to all living entities. Mad bhaktim labhate param. And like this, he performs devotional service. Mad bhaktim labhate param. 18.54. So, like this, then after Durvasa Muni comes back, he offers him nice meal. And, Durvasa Muni says, no, I'm not going to have meal without you. So you also come and we'll both have meal together. First, he was so, this one that, I need to have the meal first. And after I finish, then you should have. Now he says, no, we'll both have together. So Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj become very good friends. And he says that, Durvasa Muni says that just by touching your feet, simply by seeing you, I have become very happy. So simply by, he understands the exalted, the high position of a pure devotee. And he gives a blessing to Ambarish Maharaj that your glories will always be sung and chanted continuously throughout the world. And giving this blessing, he leaves. And so that is the end of the pastime. And then Shukadev Goswami says that whoever hears this pastime, whoever speaks this pastime, whoever remembers this pastime, all those people get either they get liberated or they become pure devotees, or if they are not devotees right now, then they start their journey towards becoming devotees immediately. So that is the benefit of hearing this pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. So very wonderful pastime. We covered 2 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, 9.4 and 9.5. So it is 7:23. I wanted to go over some verses to go in detail, deeper, but I didn't realize it will take like a good one hour plus to go through the pastime. But I felt very happy to share this pastime with you. And we have few minutes. Any discussion, any questions, comments, anything? You can raise your hands and then we can go in that sequence. Yes, we'll start with Madhav and Shivani.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So my question was, since Durvasa Muni was able to access Vaikuntha's and the higher planetary systems, so why was he still attached to the impersonal Brahman? It's like even the 4 Kumaras, they were first of all attached to the impersonal Brahman, but when they saw Lord Vishnu, when they smelled the tulsi leaves from the feet of Lord Vishnu, then they became devotees of Lord Vishnu. So why did that not happen with Durvasa Muni as well? And why was he still attached?
Because he didn't spend a lot of time in Vaikuntha. He would only go to Vaikuntha to get his purpose resolved, and didn't wait enough time to smell tulsi leaves. The 4 Kumaras were actually searching for the Lord Vishnu because they did not know, they were not devotees, but they were looking to have an audience with Lord Vishnu. And so they were searching for him. And in the meantime, they smelled the fragrance of the lotus, of the tulsi leaves. Durvasa Muni is very, clear cut. I want to, get my question answered, not with a mood to have an audience with the Lord, but more like for for his own purpose. So a little bit self-centered. So though he understands, see, there is a difference. See, another part of your question maybe, he knew he can access Lord Vishnu, he can go to Vaikuntha. So this shows, now these are deep pastimes. I have no qualification to speak much about these deep topics, but at least the learning that we can take is there is a big difference between knowing and practicing. Even though one may know all the Vedic knowledge as deep as Durvasa Muni, so definitely he knows that bhakti is the highest, but it is embedded deep within the Vedas, but he knows it. But if you know that, why don't you practice it? So it's not possible for everybody who knows it to practice it. For practicing devotional service, you need the mercy of a pure devotee. Rupa Goswami says this in Nectar of Devotion. Only by the mercy of a pure devotee, your bhakti starts. Whether it is in previous life or some previous life, then it continues. But the starting point, sometime or the other, has to be through the mercy of a pure devotee.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Maybe because of his anger, everything goes away.
Yeah, and then the question can be why the anger remains? Because one is not practicing bhakti.
Yes, so Prabhuji, along with this Durvasa, it's also mentioned in some Shastras that Durvasa Muni blessed Srimati Radharani in some of what was that blessing, that whatever food she would cook, that would be, the person who eats her cooked food would become immortal. Something like that. So how could he approach Srimati Radharani and still not be not taken over by them?
Different pastimes and different, yeah. Hard to understand. But the learning for us is more than analyzing Durvasa Muni's nature. Our learning should be to not become like him. That is much easier to implement. So for simple-minded people, at least, or less intelligent people like me, one can take the simple part of the learning and just apply it. So that's how much I can say. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So next week, we will go into some of the verses of these two chapters, some selected verses, but there are a lot. So we'll see. So please remember this chapter. So we will not go over the story or the pastime again. So we spent 1 hour, maybe in 5 minutes, I will summarize just to recap the whole pastime, not in 1 hour. And rest of the time we will use in really going deeper into the verses and enjoying what all happens. The words of Shukdev Goswami as he's describing the glory of Ambarish Maharaj, or the instructions by Lord Vishnu to Durvasa Muni, his relationship, how he is completely in the control of his devotees, and what Durvasa Muni says to Ambarish Maharaj, saying that I have offended you, and some of these verses. So a lot of them we will go through next time. Okay. Anything else? Any questions, comments? Did you like it, or or anything?
Yeah, very much, Prabhuji. The way you described is very wonderful, to say the least.
I was just having the Veda base open, and I was going through all the verses and just sort of saying it in my own words. So everything I said is directly from Srila Prabhupada's translations. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada. But thank you for your comment. Thank you so much. Anything
Thank
else?
you, Prabhuji, for
Thank
your,
you.
this Ambarish thing is very important for all the devotees
Yes,
to become stronger devotee.
absolutely. Very much. Anything else? Okay, so looks like we are done then, right on time, 7:30. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to read and to share something, and for attentively listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Harish
Prabhuji.
Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Om.
Krishna.